Hey, we're back. We're back for another season from a Southside point of view. I'm here with my co-host Josh Nelson. Josh, I know you're feeling under the weather, man. Thank you for joining. We'll power through. This will be like your flu game, man. This will be like your flu game, only slightly different contagion. So, uh, I did want to. I see that there's already. This is something we didn't maybe have as much in previous seasons. We already got a super chat here with a quick question to you. And first, it's from Drew. He says, "Hope you're feeling better, Josh." And also think Disney is going to go in on Star Wars since the MCU flopped with Secret Invasion. And Josh, I know you had some harsh things to say about Secret Invasion, so I do want to ask you this question to start off the show.
Yeah, I think that is becoming the strategy, isn't it, for Disney? It again, it's like with anything in this world. Sometimes people just hang on for too long. Everybody has their peak in something. We can't all do things 20 plus years. Usually our peaks at anything that we do might be over like a 10, 15-year stretch. And Kevin Feige has been running MCU for a long time. I just feel like they're losing it. Like whatever momentum that they built up going into Endgame. I thought WandaVision was great. I thought Loki was great, but Chorizy, they're losing it, and they have complicated problems with the way that Secret Invasion ended. So I wish him the best of luck. But in the first two episodes of Ahsoka, coming off, I think we gave it a B grade for season three, The Mandalorian. I thought there was definitely some redeemable qualities from that season. Some let's call them hardcore Star Wars fans. They wanted more Grogu uh, in The Mandalorian, but with the Emmys coming up and Andor receiving so many nominations, and even Obi-Wan receiving so many nominations, I feel like there's a lot more momentum and better quality of content, Chorizy, coming from Star Wars than the MCU. I don't know if you agree or not with that statement.
Yeah, I think so, and I think this show's actually going to be a big piece of this because this is going to provide the direction for the next few years. It seems so. It's going to be interesting to how this plays out. You did mention something in there. You said hardcore Star Wars fans, and so I want to get into our first question of the show, which is these first two episodes of Ahsoka. It is an extension of Rebels. It does feel like Rebels season five. So the question is, how do these episodes work for those that watched Rebels versus those that didn't? And I know we both watched it, so we have a certain perspective, but I have talked to people who didn't watch Rebels, and got some perspective from them. How did you feel about it from this standpoint?
So while doing a rewatch of these episodes, obviously the first time I'm watching it, I'm super excited because so many of our favorite Rebels characters are now in live action. And I was really curious to see on who these I don't know if we're ready to call them Sith quite yet, but these Siths, let's just call them Siths right now, and like
Yeah.
how they interact and what kind of powers they're showcasing, so we get some clues in who they possibly could be, and we'll talk about that later in this show. So the first time I watched it, obviously it's me understanding on how Rebels worked. And the funny thing is, I started before watching the two episodes, I went back and starting from the World Between Worlds episode in Rebels in season four, Chorizy, to the end. And it flows so wonderfully into the first two episodes of Ahsoka. So for those that did watch Rebels, I think you got to be psyched. I think you got to be super happy in how these first two episodes went. If you didn't watch Rebels, I call this the Game of Thrones effect, in which if you hadn't read the books and you just started watching the TV show, you're learning a lot about who these characters are and why they matter. While the people who read the books are all giddy as hell sitting next to you and nerding out because they know these characters, Chorizy, and they know why they're important. So it always felt like people who didn't read the books watching Game of Thrones are like 2 or even 3 steps behind, especially early in Game of Thrones when everybody who read the books knew the Red Wedding was going to be the big buildup, and everybody who didn't read the books was like floored that that type of event happened. So we may be getting a little bit of that in this the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, in which those that didn't watch, I don't think you need to watch Rebels. They may have a lot of questions of why am I seeing so much of this character, Sabine Wren? Why is she the way that she is? Why is her and Ahsoka having this kind of conflict or friction between them? And even though those that watch Rebels, we are trying to figure out as well you guys are, and why there is that friction. That's one of the unanswered questions at this moment. So if you watched Rebels, I think you love it. If you didn't watch Rebels, I think you're cautiously optimistic right now, Chorizy, about the series, as you're still a couple steps behind. Eventually, I do think they will get there, though.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things here. So the one is, I think if you did watch Rebels, the first episode probably felt slow, because they're trying to build up all these characters. They're trying to show you a little bit of their personality, a little bit of how they interact with each other, because there's years of relationships that they built in those shows that they have to confine into like 30 seconds of like, okay, these people interact this way because they know each other very well. I mean, like you even see the guy, and I'm blanking on his name, who's like in charge of Lothal at this point. He
The governor, yes.
He turns to Sabine at one point and is like, you'll want to hear this. And he seems almost dickish in this moment, but like if you've watched the shows, you know that he's like a father figure to this group. So like you'd miss out on something like that. I don't think it's that important, but like you might get the wrong vibes off of some of the characters when you're getting into this if you haven't watched it. And I think that they have to build on that, but having to build on that makes it a little slower for those who are like, okay, no, I know how these people work together. So I don't know why I need to see more of this. So they're really going to have to thread the needle in these first few episodes to give enough information to those people that have not watched it. And then to those people that have watched it, keep them engaged by having enough action. And they did that, I think, pretty well in the first 2 episodes, especially because they're like, hey guys, remember lightsabers? Those are awesome. We're going to give you some.
Yeah, by the way, it's Governor Ryder. Izadi,
Ryder, yes.
By actor Clancy Brown, which it's funny because I recently just went on vacation. That's how I got COVID. Clancy Brown was in John Wick 4. He is the guy that's like officiating the duel. Spoiler alert. I won't tell you on how that ends. But Clancy Brown was actually the original voice actor, for Ryder in Rebels. So I was so happy that they carried that over, and they continue to do that, where they continue to cast the actors that voice characters in the previous animated shows of Star Wars. I do like that trend, and I hope they continue to do that. One character that did not continue the voice, though, was with Sabine. And I think with this topic, to kind of wrap this up, it's a lot of Sabine, and I think that's probably the point for Dave, for those that didn't watch Rebels, that Sabine's got layers. How do you feel about the portrayal of Sabine Wren in the first 2 episodes that we've watched, Chorizy?
So yeah, I think, and we'll get into this. We'll talk in depth about Sabine and how she's going to come off in this show and what the show's going to be about. But I feel like if you didn't watch Rebels, you're probably looking at this character and going like, she's kind of a psychopath, kind of a brat. It's like, and that's kind of the portrayal that they gave in the first episode, which I think sets up well for what they want to do. But at the same time, it's not quite accurate to the character. I think that they're going to have to do some things to help that character grow, so that in front of the audience, so that people who didn't watch Rebels will get a little bit more of an understanding of all the things that go into what Sabine Wren is, which is insane in the show. Like, I mean, I think that's it. She's probably the one, other than Kanan, that we've gotten the most background on. I think they're starting to move into Hera's background a lot more, but like Ezra has some background, but he was very young when they got him. So like there's a lot at play there. And we'll get into that in a little bit. What I do want to get into right away though is a different set of Filoni characters. And that is Balin Skull and Shinhati. So these are, Sith, Dark Jedi, whatever we're going to call them. Balin is definitely a former Jedi, survived Order 66. I mean, I love that, like, everyone that survived Order 66, with basically the exception of Grogu, we, like, have no idea how it happened. Eventually they did Caleb Doom, but, like,
Yeah.
but yeah, the this one is just like, it's almost like the line for the Emperor. He survived somehow. So these two are interesting, and to me, I think what I've been hearing out in the Star Wars Twitter, which is equally contentious to White Sox Twitter, just in case those of you who are not participated in it are wondering, it's just as nuts. But so Star Wars Twitter, a lot of people are comparing Shin to Mara Jade. So if you're not familiar, Mara Jade is from the Thrawn trilogy in the Legends books. She used to be the hand of the Emperor. She's a Force sensitive. She's definitely not a Jedi. And she ends up becoming a love interest of Luke Skywalker, which is, not going to happen here. That's for sure. But when I'm looking at it, Josh, I'm looking at this as Filoni going, two of my favorite characters to write were Asajj Ventress and Count Dooku, and their relationship was of great interest to him, and it is portrayed greatly in the books as well. Do you see that, or do you think that he is going to try and write this very differently, but it just happens to be like almost like a mean father-daughter relationship?
Well, I don't know if he's mean to her. I think Balin has shown as much compassion as a Dark Jedi Sith could possibly show to their Padawan. Let's just call it that, or their apprentice. Maybe we'll get more clarity, because in the comments section, I think people are pointing out that Filoni, in interviews leading up to the series, has mentioned that they may not be Sith. So we may be getting like a new form of Force users, the in-between ground of the Dark Jedi. What I love about these characters so far is that Shin just displays some of the same things that we saw in Obi-Wan with the Inquisitors, in how they want to please their masters so badly, and how they want to inflict maximum damage, and they cannot fail, and they will not fail, and they'll go to any means necessary to succeed. And I think in the first two episodes, we've seen that from Shin. She's obviously very strong with the Force, being able to, just the two of them, take over a New Republic freighter that's transporting a prisoner and wiping out the bridge with ease. So she's got quite a lot of power. Balin, I think in the next couple of episodes, Chorizy, we're going to learn more about. And Ray Stevenson, who unfortunately passed away. Again, another movie that I watched on vacation was RRR, and he is one of the main villains. I haven't seen it yet.
I hear he's awesome in it.
He is phenomenal in it. And I think this is going to be a little heartbreaky, because I think Ray Stevenson is going to bring so much into Balin and continue to help educate Star Wars fans, hardcore or novice Star Wars fans, and what happened after Order 66 and the different types of paths that Jedi had to go down to survive. And I know that's a big focal point now with all Star Wars content, even like with the video games, right? Jedi Fallen Order is all about how some Jedis survived and what they are trying to do to either combat against the Empire or work for the Empire. So I'm really interested to see where this goes. But what do you think the play is for them? Because now that we have found out more about our, let's say, B-level villain, why am I forgetting her name?
Morgan Elsbeth.
Yes, Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah.
Night Sister.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so
I want to get into that.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk about Balin and Shin and what the play is here, it's interesting to me. And one thing you said that is very true is in the Dooku Ventress relationship, that was a much more Sith based
it
torturous
was.
relationship. This seems different. And this does seem almost master apprentice on the light side. So like that's an interesting piece here, and she seems comfortable with Balin. I think the play is, if there's going to be an emperor, or like an empire, and Thrawn would replace the emperor, there needs to be a Vader, and there needs to be the Inquisitors, right? Like those need to exist, and Balin sees himself becoming the new Vader. If I'm looking at it,
And you mentioned the Inquisitor. They do have an Inquisitor, so we did see that
we're gonna
in the
get to
second
that,
episode. Yeah,
that's kind of weird. It does, like at some point in this, and let's get into Morgan Elsbeth as a Night Sister, because this is to me along the same lines. If there's part of me that like really likes that she's a Night Sister, I think bringing that into a TV version is going to be really cool. But at the same time, like there's you've got the two Dark Jedi. We're just going to call them Dark Jedi to make it easy. You've got now a Night Sister, and then you have an Inquisitor, and it feels almost like Dave is sitting around with his Star Wars toys, and he's like, well, here's all the bad guys. I'm going to put these over here. and now I've got the bad guys over here, and the good guys are over here. And it's like, this is a weird mashup of people. And so the Night Sister thing definitely, I had heard rumors that this was going to be the case when you started to see like the green
Right.
energy flowing when she was in the trailer. People were like, oh, is she a Night Sister? And it turns out she's one of the witches of Dathomir. This is strange to me, because Josh, my question around this is really like, why would Thrawn want to involve himself with this? This seems like something he would not want a part of.
Does it though? I mean, you are more well versed in the background material when it comes to Thrawn. I've always got the impression, as in his Grand Admiral role, that if there was something that ever happened between Thrawn and the Emperor, a falling out, the Emperor would send Vader. What would Thrawn have to help protect himself? A Night Sister gives you a fighting chances to survive. And I mean, they wield the dark side of the Force much differently than the Sith do. And back to Shin, that's why I really like, she does not trust Morgan Elsbeth at all. Like, oh, you're a witch? And that's like setting off a bench of like warnings, like alerts going off in her head. Like, I don't know, Master, should we really trust this witch? And I was kind of surprised that the Night Sister is kind of running the show with these Dark Jedi and commanding them to do her bidding. But that's kind of why I think Thrawn would have Morgan Elsbeth as like his right-hand person in command, just in case if there's ever a falling out. But I don't know if that ever came to be, or there are any hints of that in the background material, in the books, and the comics between Thrawn and the Emperor.
So typically, you make a very good point about him going against the Emperor or going against Vader, right? And the Emperor, one of the people that he was actually nervous about being out there in the wild was Mother Talzin, which is why he has Dooku go and strike down the witches of Dathomir, right? Like he's afraid of them. Like he doesn't want that out there. The thing with Thrawn is Thrawn would want to wield a weapon of this sort, right? Like that would be of interest to him. But especially in the Legends material, he is not a fan of force wielding power or these types of power to the point that he finds ways to control those. So, and not himself, but be able to block the Jedi's ability to use the Force. Right? There's in Legends, there's ways to do that. I don't know that there's here. It's possible he has some way to do this to Morgan, and that is why he is willing to keep her around. It just seems to me he's too logical to have something that could be like a ticking time bomb or someone that could want to overtake him. So it's possible she is weak in those in that dark sister or night sister dark magic. But like it seems weird that he would have someone this close to him that has such a power that he has no real understanding of. So we'll see. But I mean, in the books, he also had a Dark Jedi rolling with him, who was a clone and going insane. So it's not impossible. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, though. The actress that plays Morgan Elsbeth, though, is awesome. And grew up in martial arts. So like we're gonna see some more fight scenes, I would assume, out of her.
Yeah, on the actor perspective, I think everyone did a phenomenal job acting. Hera, who, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, right? She's married to Ewan McGregor. So in real life, Hera and Obi-Wan Kenobi are married. I thought with Hera, I was skeptical because that's a lot of makeup, prosthetics. I thought she did a phenomenal job with that. Didn't she voice Hera in Rebels?
No, I think it was I believe it was someone else that voiced Hera.
Got it.
I'm blanking on her name though.
Yeah. Okay. So they recast it from the original voice, but so, Chorizy brought up this question. Yeah. Is that
I believe
true?
It's her godfather. Yeah, I believe it's her godfather. Yeah, because she said that during Celebration, and we were all kind of like stopped in our tracks, like whoa, because her father and I believe even her well, at least her father was in a lot of martial arts movies in Japan, which is, lends to the abilities here that we're gonna see.
The goddaughter of Bruce Lee. Oh, her middle name is Lee in honor of her godfather, Bruce Lee. She's Diana Lee Inosanto. Okay, that's cool. That's a great factoid. Wow. That's awesome.
So I assume we're gonna see some good fight scenes between her and Rosario at some point. Much like we already got one.
Right.
So we'll see who else she gets to fight.
But
with.
that previous scene,
she's a real wild card in this.
Yeah. That, by the way, back to season 2, The Mandalorian, the episode The Jedi. That fight scene makes a lot more sense now if she is a Night Sister, because somebody wielding a Beskar spear against Ahsoka Tano, you're gonna lose, right? And you can lose really bad. But she's able to hold her own, and I've always kind of wondered, there must be more that meets the eye here for this particular character. Yes, there is. She's a Night Sister. So yeah, that would give her a better fighting chance against a Jedi.
And so let's get into our next bad guy. And I say bad guy because my question here is, who is Morocc? But they do refer to him as he. In this, so it does seem that it's a guy. I think a lot of people were wondering, could it be Barriss Offee? But it doesn't seem like that's the case. And I think, I was talking about this with Cornsey earlier. I think if Barriss Offee makes an appearance in the show, it's very much going to be as her. It's not going to be a reveal. She is just going to be out there doing whatever the hell she's been doing for the past 20, 30 years. But Josh, any thought on who this could be? Or is it anybody? Or is it just some random Inquisitor?
I think it's some random Inquisitor that they have found and will do their bidding, because as you are building up a counteroffensive against the New Republic, you need people. You need a squad. So you got 3 Force users here, And Merrick is very lucky. I thought Merrick was going to go down in episode 2 against Ahsoka. How awesome was that when Merrick is on the ship and uses the Force to bring back his lightsaber as it's going like the spinning, and Ahsoka just like barely getting out of the way, like to kind of show off. I thought that was a nice touch.
Just nonchalant, just like, oh, there's a lightsaber flying at me. Like it was pretty badass. It really shows you, like, that was a great moment of like her looking at those two and just kind of being like, you guys ain't shit. Like I might have a time with Balin, but you guys got no chance. So, but yeah, I thought that scene was awesome. I'm wondering if they're going to actually make this character be someone important, or a Jedi we may have seen well in the past that we weren't aware is alive. But I'm kind of with you on that. It's just Inquisitor. I actually just finished reading Rise of the Red Blade, which is a story about an Inquisitor. And we've known like 1 through 10 sisters and brothers, right? Yeah, there's way more. So like and they've just made that, like, I think this was like the ones in the book are like 13 and 15 and stuff. So like there's just a lot of Inquisitors. A lot of people have been turned to the dark side. A lot of them have been forced into it. But it's probably just a cool looking character. Again, Dave Filoni pulled out one of his toys. I want an Inquisitor toy on this side. I'm gonna do this. Those, I really like those lightsaber stuff. I love the like the spinning lightsaber. I'm a fan of that. So it'll be cool to see that. There's gonna be some crazy fights here because there's just too many people with lightsabers. And then a Night Sister. So as much as I don't think that this is going to be someone of particular consequence, it adds a wrinkle, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're going to get a Merrick versus Sabine Wren type of fight, and to see how Sabine does, because obviously she did not fare well against Shin. not well at all. Just a flesh wound.
She doesn't. My God, I was laughing. I forgot who it was. I was watching someone a recap, and someone was like, "How does everyone survive this except for Qui-Gon? Did he just want to die?"
Maybe. Maybe.
So let's get into Sabine, because there's a lot going on here, and I couldn't even put everything that is probably important to Sabine, but to give some background on Sabine, she is part of the Rebels crew. Josh, I'm starting to wonder if Kanan was trying to find Force sensitives to train, and that is actually how he came upon Sabine, because Sabine is with the crew when we start Rebels. She's already part of the crew. She's ex-Imperial. She's Mandalorian. She actually built a weapon that kills Mandalorians, basically cooks them in their Beskar. Didn't mean to do that, but she invented it, and it's part of how the Empire controlled Mandalore. But like I said, she is Mandalorian. She goes back. She at one point wields the Darksaber. And she wields it well. Like, she is taught by a Jedi how to use a lightsaber. She takes the Darksaber on. She fights with it. It's impressive. She goes on to be at the end of the Rebels whole series. She's the one that reads the epilogue, and this is important because Filoni wrote that, and he specifically had her do it. I was actually at a Rebels panel probably 5 years ago, something like that, and they talked about that, and none of the rest of the cast knew that the voice actor that was playing Sabine had this piece of paper It was only written on piece of paper, never scripted otherwise, and it was read, and they didn't. No one in the cast saw it until the premiere of the final episode of Rebels. So, very important character to Filoni, and in the first episode, they got this whole like it's weird. You don't often hear rock music in
No, you
Star
don't.
Wars. But so they threw that in. I think Kevin Kiner and his wife wrote that one. But they definitely, that scene, it just makes her seem kind of insane, which to some extent she is, but like you can get why. And the other thing about it is that has served her very well. You see it with the dismantling of or not dismantling, the retrieving of the information from the droid's head, where she's willing to take it almost to the point of explosion. That's the character. I think they're getting at it. I don't think that first scene like really gave you what you wanted to understand that, but that is where they're going with that. So that to me is interesting. I think that the Jedi piece, I'm not sure about right now. And Josh, I'd like to get your thoughts on what you think about Sabine the Jedi, Sabine in this series.
So, I don't think Sabine's ever going to be a Jedi. She is Mandalorian. She knows how to fight. And to your point, we have seen her go through lightsaber training with Kanan and with Ezra in Rebels when she comes across the dark saber. And I believe she ends up using, even in Rebels, she ends up using Ezra's lightsaber to defeat, who was that? It wasn't Finn Rao. It was, who ends up working for the Emperor back when she goes home.
I forget the name of the guy, but yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so many characters.
Who has taken over the machine that she built, actually.
Exactly. She ends up winning that duel using a regular lightsaber and not the dark saber. I don't know if she's ever going to have force sensitive abilities. She's obviously having dreams, and when she is sleeping and dreaming, obviously Ahsoka could tap into that, and there's a lot going on. I don't know if that's necessarily demonstrating force sensitive abilities within Sabine. But like the overall character, I mean, she's a punk, right? To your point, yep. And as somebody that understands punk and that what everything that goes into being punk, not only just music, but fashion and personality. Like, she's a phenomenal artist with an engineering background. My concern is for those that didn't watch Rebels, if they're just going to view Sabine, going back to Secret Invasion, as Emilia Clarke's character, just an overly powerful character that, wow, they seem to do everything super well. No, they don't do everything super well because she got pierced in a lightsaber fight. So she does have her limitations, but her stubbornness and her Mandalorian background and personality, she will never quit and she will never back down from a fight. So yeah, she's going to figure out the star map. She's going to find clues in art, as we have seen in the World Between Worlds and helping Ezra get through the portal in Rebels. And she's going to be an excellent fighter. Yes, she's got some pretty badass Mandalorian gear, but I'm fine throughout this entire series in her attempting to learn and maybe struggling to learn the ways of the Force, only because she doesn't have that type of ability. But because of her fighting background, because of her Mandalorian background, Chorizy, I have no problem with Sabine being efficient with the lightsaber. A lightsaber is just a weapon. So if you can demonstrate sword wielding abilities, I would have to think you could do all right fighting with a lightsaber, even if you are going up against force-sensitive beings, whether they are Jedi, Dark Jedi, or Sith. So I think we kind of need that. I think we need to see that moving forward, because again, I think with everything like the big picture stuff, they're going to try to make more sense of the last three movies. And with Finn, with him having hand-to-hand combat as a stormtrooper, when he does get the lightsaber, ultimately he gets his ass kicked. But he's able to stand his ground for a little bit because he's got fighting ability. Sabine's got fighting ability, so I'm totally okay with that if she could wield a lightsaber and hold her own. I just don't think she'll ever develop force sensitive abilities.
Yeah, I think they're going to show that she has just enough force sensibility to help them find Ezra. I think that that's the reason to even indicate that she has some
You think it'll be force sensitive, or would it
connection
just
to the
be
Force.
her like just how smart she is and how she can identify patterns, like
So,
using intelligence?
So I think Josh, I think that is so. That's the next thing I wanted to get to, and you touched on it for a moment there, and now you're getting into it even more. I think where she becomes the most important part of her character in this is her connection to art and her ability to have that kind of problem solving connection to art, because that, and when they don't do it enough in Rebels, but in the books, Thrawn can deconstruct an entire civilization by looking at pieces of their art and understanding that. And Sabine is the only character we've seen so far that could possibly be a foil to him in this kind of endeavor. And so that, I think, especially if we're getting into like the more mystical pieces of this, the Night Sister stuff, all these different kind of cosmic and mystical pieces of Star Wars that are different than the Force, I think you need a Sabine Wren to be in this to do those types of things, and to do them as well or better than Thrawn. And I think that that's where like I really see this character kind of going. And I think that like as much as the name of the show is Ahsoka, this is going to be a lot about Sabine. Like to the point where you're kind of like in Clone Wars, where you're like, why are we focusing on this Ahsoka girl so much? You know, so like I think that you're gonna see a lot here and a lot of growth. And they barely touched on it in the beginning of this series to say, oh, you're the one with the artistic eye. Take a look at this. You know, it's just like kind of like offhanded comment. But I think it's going to be important against Thrawn.
No, and back to our earlier conversation, for those that didn't watch Rebels, you may think, oh, no, that's convenient. But those that did watch Rebels, no, we know exactly what Ahsoka is talking about. And yes, Sabine could probably figure it out.
You mentioned the world between worlds. Like it took her and Ezra together to figure out how to get into that, into the world between worlds. And if you haven't watched Rebels, just watch that one arc, the world between worlds arc. It's actually the background on this today, but there's nothing that has anything to do with Star Wars. Just kind of like the Mortis arc in Clone Wars, where it's like you could just watch this on its own and it's just very enjoyable. But speaking of finding Ezra, I do want to talk about this. So like the whole first two episodes are based around this star map, and we find out that it's the pathway to Paridia, which is Balin Skull refers to as kind of like a fairy tale that they tell young Jedi. This is very, very interesting because this looks like we will be going to another galaxy, which we have not done in regular Star Wars.
Right.
Star Wars Legends has other galaxies. And so I'm just going to go through these all at once, and you can give me your lowdown on this, Josh. I have some crazy thoughts, so I'll get to those last. But is this Thrawn and or Ezra calling to them? Is it a trap? Who will they find out there? I think the calling to them, Balin seemed not to really believe the Morgan Elsbeth that Thrawn is calling to her. So what did you take away from all of this of like them going to this other galaxy?
Really excited because now we're venturing into really the unknown. But if I remember correctly, at the end of Rebels, don't they kind of highlight the ability of the secret hyperspace lanes to go to other galaxies and planets that may not appear on any type of Empire or Old or New Republic star maps, that they are hidden from
So
mapping?
yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a few things here. There's a few things at play. So one, obviously, and if you haven't watched Rebels and you're planning to watch Rebels, just take 30 seconds off.
The,
Uh,
the fifth time we're telling you to go watch Rebels.
so at the end, when the Purrgil pull them away, the Purrgil basically were the path to the first hyperspace lanes. So the fact that you would think that everybody had mapped every single lane that they know seems impossible, right? So they can definitely jump to other places. In the books, Thrawn is very hesitant to give any information about the unknown regions where he comes from, so the chaos, to the Emperor. He ain't mapping out that, for not, at least not fully, for the Emperor. So he's protective about those areas. There's got to be other areas we know in, and this is something that came up in a lot of breakdowns that I've watched. In Andor, they talk about the Rakuten invaders, and that's where the blue kyber crystal comes from. That's where they fought off those invaders. They, in Legends, come from a different galaxy. In in Legends, the Yuzhong Van come from another galaxy. So there's kind of precedence in Legends, which obviously Filoni's pulling a lot from. So like there's definitely talk of other galaxies, even in canon, but we have not been there.
No, so I think, I don't know who's calling to them. Maybe it was always a backup plan for Thrawn, that if something were to happen, if he needed to exile himself away from the Emperor again, if things went sideways, that he told Morgan, this is where I would be. Like, if things go bad, this is where we would exile to, because the Empire has no knowledge of getting to this planet. So I don't know if anyone's necessarily calling to them. Maybe this was always like the safe house. Let's call it a safe house for Thrawn.
I love it.
And the only way Morgan could find the safe house, and so hidden, is this one particular star map in a very old Night Sister temple. Not a Jedi temple, not a Sith temple. So no Jedi or Sith would ever think about going to a Night Sister temple to find the star map. So I that's what I'm going to go with. That's my thought process right now. It's Thrawn's safe house. But how Ezra wouldn't know that when he's using the pergola to send them away from Lothal in the final episode of Rebels. So how do they get there if that's the case? This is a big unknown, and I'm perfectly fine being very wrong and being in the shadows here, because I have as many questions as everybody else. And where are we going to this new galaxy and why?
Yeah, and I think one thing to point out is that like this the Purrgil pulling them into hyperspace and going wherever they went. We don't know where they went. That happens before the original trilogy, right? Like, so if you're thinking about timelines, you've got the entire original trilogy that you get through. So you go all the way to Jedi. Then you have, after that, all the shows that we've been watching that are, like Mandalorian and stuff, that are like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years after. And this, I think, is taking place after those, because Ahsoka refers to Thrawn as like the last Grand Admiral that they're after. Like, they've gotten everybody else. They got Moff Gideon, right? Like, they feel like they have caught everybody else. The Morgan Elsbeth, it happens during the Mando timeline, so she's caught. So like this is like 10 years later, maybe. It seems like, from, so over 10 years, who knows where they have been, and who knows what the relationship, if any, between Thrawn and Ezra is at this point, and if they're even still anywhere near each other. So I think that's kind of what need to find out in some of these next episodes. I do have a crazy theory that I'll end with here, though, is in the books, in the Thrawn books, there is a group trying to take over parts of Chiss space and trying to actually defeat the Chiss, and they're called the Grisk. They're really really well armed. They have like huge fleets. They just have tons and tons of soldiers, and they're also like really intelligent. So the way that they take over some of these planets and some of these galaxies is that they will kind of get someone in place to in a government or something and start to seed like a civil war, and then they'll have the planet just kind of like destroy themselves, and then they swoop in at the end and like just clean up everything that's, you know, like think about it, like if someone would have invaded the United States post Civil War, it would have been a pretty easy
Okay. Yeah.
takeover. And so the New Republic seems to be in a very vulnerable position. So this seems like something that could happen. And it could be the Grisk behind this all, which would be interesting, because if you have Thrawn coming and saying like, look, I know I tried to kill all of you, but I need your help, right?
Right.
You wouldn't trust it. You like there could be a new layer of things that are going on. I kind of doubt that's going to happen. I think we're going to get a pretty straight up Thrawn's the big bad and we got to fight him type of thing. But I think that if we are going to a different galaxy, we don't know where the Grisk are from. Even in the books, there's no idea where they came from, why they're there. It could be a cool twist, and it could be something where you get a little bit more of the Thrawn from the books, where it's like, yeah, he's not a good person. He's a fairly, he's kind of a maniac, but he does have some kind of best intention. If you think of like Thanos, right? Where you're like, this is a terrible plan, but we get why you're trying to do it. Like, you think you're doing a good job, right? Like that kind of like hero of their own story type of mentality. I think we could see that of Thrawn if they go this direction, but you could always just go the guy wants to rule the world, rule the galaxy. I think both will work, but I think this, to me personally, would be more interesting.
Okay, I like it. It brings another whole race into the conversation, into the storyline. I'm in the dark here, as everybody else, and I think we're going to be learning why this planet is so important to Thrawn, and if we'll actually find Thrawn there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, man, there's going to be part of me that's going to be very sad if they like kind of draw this out and we get like one episode of Thrawn at the very end. Like that would be I would be a little bit upset. I would get it. I would get what they're doing, but I would be a little bit upset. We'll just end it with I do want to mention that the New Republic is very poorly run. They're doing as bad of a job as the Empire, from what I could see. Between the guy going like, you know what, let's let these guys on our ship. This I wanna just put it in their face that they don't know what they're getting into. All the way to them just having like an entire Imperial fleet just working on the destruction of an Imperial fleet. It just seems very, very stupid. I did like that. We both Chorizy and I laughed out loud when the guy just yells out "for the Empire." It might have been one of the worst written lines in Star Wars.
Yeah, transition of power is always a difficult thing. It's not as smooth, and I think in all this new Star Wars content, they continue to hammer this point home that, yay, the Rebels won and the New Republic is back and everybody is happy and everything ends up being great. No. And again, at some point, they need to build up to the First Order here, even after Thrawn, or maybe Thrawn is the one that builds the First Order and gets taken care of, or continues to progress after his demise. We'll see. He's obviously not in the last three movies of Star Wars, and they're still canon, even though sometimes I don't want them to be. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But it is to your point, like the New Republic is really struggling here, and that's why it opens up an opportunity for the Empire to come back.
Totally agree. It's gonna be a fun ride, and I promise next episode we'll actually talk about Ahsoka herself a little bit. We haven't.
I know, right?
She hasn't given us much to talk about yet. It was a lot of character building around her, so we'll see. I mean, she's still badass, and we're gonna see some awesome fight scenes, I'm sure. So we look forward to chatting with you guys next week. It should be an interesting show, and it's just a couple days away. I love the Tuesday release, so let's keep that going. Josh, thank you so much for joining. I know you're not feeling great. I hope to see you soon in person once we can do that again. I'll talk to you soon, and we'll talk to everybody else very soon. Thanks.
Peace.
Everyone.